Hello everyone, I'm Kelly, librarian at the Youngstown Public Library, and welcome to Saturday Night Scares presents A Spirited Birthday by Dr. von Puggenstein. Tonight our story is going to be a little different. This family-friendly ghost story is in honor of Reuben McMillan, celebrating his 200th birthday on October 7th, and kicks off a week of fun birthday festivities at the library and on our website. Who is Reuben McMillan? He founded the Youngstown Public Library and is actually the library's namesake. Mr. McMillan was the first president of the library board and created the Youngstown Library in 1880. The library was later renamed the Reuben McMillan Free Library Association in his honor. So you see, without Reuben McMillan, there would be no public library of Youngstown and Mahoning County. And so, join us for a spirited birthday as we listen in on a spooky birthday party. It was a beautiful, crisp October morning in Youngstown, Ohio, as Wendy drove through the red, orange, and yellow tree-lined parking lot and pulled up to the building. She worked as a librarian at the Public Library of Youngstown and Mahoning County downtown and always marveled at the beauty of the old building with its thick stone walls and pillars and name Reuben McMillan Free Library etched above the front doors. She got out of the car, gathered the 2 bunches of multicolored balloons from the back seat, and turned to head through the parking lot. She felt one of the strings loosen from the bunch, and she fumbled to gather them all together, but one rogue string wiggled and slipped away from her grasp. She watched helplessly as a lone black balloon drifted higher and higher into the sky, dancing in the wind with the dark gray clouds that were beginning to congregate and swirl around the blue sky. Strange. I didn't think I ordered any black balloons for the party, she thought to herself. But her thoughts quickly turned to the growing list of things to be done today. Today was a day of celebration at the library. It was Reuben's 200th birthday party. Reuben McMillan, the library's namesake, had been the superintendent of Youngstown schools then and had signed the Articles of Incorporation for the library. The name of the library was changed to honor Reuben after his passing. Late in October, the party had both a birthday and Halloween theme, with staff dressed in costumes. Wendy wore a black cat costume, complete with whiskers. As she entered the building, she encountered Dave Bowers, her favorite maintenance man. Dave was well liked by all the librarians, with the exception of 1 or 2. "Hey, Dave," she called out. "How's it going?" Dave's answer,
"Just ducky. Couldn't wait to get here,"
was perhaps slightly sarcastic.
"Make sure to get a cup of coffee before it's gone."
Wendy smiled at the thought. She loved coffee, and Dave made the best coffee in the library, as long as you were lucky enough to get a cup. Wendy paused at the circulation desk as she saw the pointy top hat of a black witch slowly rising from behind the computer monitor. It continued rising until the green-painted face of her friend appeared. "Wow, Amanda, don't you look great?" Black cat and witch. Our costumes really go together. Amanda launched into her best impersonation of a witch's cackle, which quickly broke into her own laughter. "Just wait till you see Julie." Julie and Amanda were sisters. Where one was, the other was not usually far behind. "Are you excited for the party today?" Wendy asked, knowing the response. "Of course," Amanda replied, "but there's still so much to do before it starts." A voice from behind Wendy suddenly startled her. "I call taste testing duty." Wendy recognized the voice and whirled around to greet Julie. "Of course you would. I didn't know you were dressing as a ghost this year. Spooky." "Well," Julie replied, "everyone knows the best part of a party is the cake." Wendy responded with a chuckle. "I don't think we need to test the cake, but someone definitely needs to sample the caramel apples. I don't think Reuben would mind sharing. Or would he? We don't really know that much about Reuben." Amanda answered, "He founded the library, and his ghost supposedly haunts the library. But as for his personal life, I don't know anything." Julie chimed in, "I'm sure he had a family, but I've never heard anything about them." A booming crash of thunder interrupted the conversation, causing Wendy to jump. Julie and Amanda laughed as Wendy said, "Man, that scared me. I guess the dark clouds I saw outside mean a storm is coming. I hope it doesn't keep people away from the party. Speaking of which, I better go check on the preparations. Don't have too much fun without me." She pushed away from the desk and bounded toward the kitchen in the back of the building. After Wendy had disappeared through the kitchen door, Julie and Amanda continued going over their list. "Hey," Julie said, "has anyone heard from the band?" Just then, Stacy rushed over to the desk and excitedly exclaimed, "Is this some kind of joke? A Halloween prank or something?" Stacy, also a librarian, was friends with the group, although she had a reputation for pranking. "Slow down," Amanda responded. "Skeleton, huh? I like it. But what did you just say? Take off your mask so we can understand you." Stacy flung her skeleton mask onto the desk and exasperatedly held up a copy of Charles Dickens' Great Expectations. "Look at this book," she cried as she quickly flipped through the pages. "Every page is blank." "That makes no sense," Amanda said, and she grabbed the book closest to her on the counter. Max Licado's "You'll Get Through This. Hope and Help for Your Turbulent Times." "What's going on here?" she exclaimed. "This book is blank too." Julie and Amanda began grabbing the books around them and discovered that they, too, were all completely blank. "I'll go get the director," Amanda said. "She'll know what to do." She leapt from her chair and hurried down the hallway. "Did you do this?" Julie asked Stacy suspiciously. "I know how you love to pull pranks." "No," Stacy exclaimed. "I swear I had nothing to do with this. How could this have happened?" As if to confirm her statement, some confused library patrons began to cautiously approach the desk.
"There's something wrong with this book,"
the first patron in line said.
"It's blank."
Before Julie or Stacy could respond, the next person in line said,
"Mine too. Why are all the books blank?"
Stacy had experienced a lot in her years at the library, so despite the absurdity of the situation, she remained calm. "It's okay, everyone," she advised. "We'll figure this out, and everything will be fine." "Julie, it's been a little while. Can you go check on Amanda and the director? I'll stay here." As Julie left to search for the pair, she passed a man running up to the desk.
"There's something wrong in the bathroom."
Stacy looked up at the man, and over his shoulder noticed Dave Bowers in the distance, the dread in his eyes apparent at hearing the word bathroom. Her focus returned to the man, and she asked, "What now? What happened?" The man looked down at his feet nervously and sheepishly replied,
"I don't know. When I walked in, the toilets and sinks just started gushing water. It's everywhere."
Dave couldn't pretend he hadn't heard that.
I'm on it,
he said, and rushed off into the bathroom. Meanwhile, Julie reached the director's office and gingerly approached the doorway. The door was partially open, blocking the full view of the office, but she could see the director was not at her desk. She knocked gently, and just as she started to step inside the office, she was startled by a loud witch's cackle from inside the office that echoed in her ears. She rushed into the office, looked frantically around the room, and spotted Amanda standing behind the door in her witch costume. "Amanda, are you okay?" she blurted out. "What's going on? Where's the director?" Amanda stood there impassively, staring blankly at the director's desk. Julie reached out and shook her sister's arm. "Amanda, what's wrong? Wake up!" Amanda's body shuddered, and her face bore a stunned expression as she looked from her sister back to the desk. "The chair," she said as she pointed. "Look at her chair." Julie moved around the back of the desk and spotted a piece of paper on the seat. A note that read, "This library is mine," followed by 3 exclamation points. Julie shifted her eyes from the paper back to her sister's face. "This note, this is your handwriting. What are you doing? Where's the director?" Amanda stared back at her sister and answered in a monotone, "I don't know. I remember knocking and coming in when she greeted me, and then nothing. The next thing I know, I was looking down at her chair, and that note was on it in my handwriting. I didn't write that. I don't think. Oh, what happened?" Julie stared back at her sister for a few seconds and then began to laugh. "Wow, I'm impressed. It all makes sense now. This is Stacy's best prank yet. She even had the director in on it. The blank books, leaving a note in your handwriting. It's pretty good, but look at the letter R. It looks nothing like yours." She exhaled deeply and a sigh of relief and continued. They almost had us. Let's not let Stacy know we know just yet. Let's make her sweat. We'll go check on the party preparations before going back to the desk. Then she'll wonder what happened to us. Are you sure? Amanda replied. It looks like my handwriting. Amanda, you've been here for years. Stacy could have easily copied your handwriting from notes you left on the desk, Julie surmised. Let's head to the kitchen. I think we deserve a snack. Back at the circulation desk, Stacy waited impatiently for anyone, to return. Bowers had left to clean up the bathroom, and she had a growing line of confused and anxious patrons. The storm was continuing to grow outside. Thunder rolled and cracked, making her jump. A book fell out of her hands and landed open on the counter. The words, she exclaimed, they're back! She grabbed another book and flipped it open. This one's fine too. Everyone, can you please check your books now? She shouted. The response was the same for each person. The pages were back to normal. They were no longer blank. Maybe it's something in the air, she thought. Or maybe this was Julie and Amanda getting me back for that prank I pulled on them last week. This was really elaborate. I'll have to find out how they did it. Meanwhile, when Julie and Amanda arrived at the kitchen, they found Wendy arranging the caramel apples. She didn't notice them come in. So after a shared furtive nod, they snuck up behind her and in unison yelled, Boo! Wendy let out a startled cry. Oh, you scared me. I was just about to, test the caramel apples. I bet, Julie replied as she walked over to the fridge. And let's test this cake. Is it in the fridge? Without waiting for an answer, she removed the sheet cake and set it on the nearest table. She lifted the top of the box to look at it. It's supposed to be marble cake, right? Wendy responded, yes, but you can't sample it. I'm not good at smoothing over fingerprints and frosting. Thunder cracked again, filling the room with a sound. Amanda nervously turned to Julie. Did you hear that? Julie laughed at her sister's jitteriness, never taking her eyes off the cake. You mean the thunder? It's just the storm. No, not the thunder. It almost sounded like a man laughing. Amanda had no sooner finished when Julie suddenly gasped, The cake! Did you see that? Amanda looked down and read the inscription on the cake aloud. Happy birthday to me? Oh no, they messed up the cake, and why would they underline to me? Julie finally lifted her gaze from the cake and looked her sister directly in the eye. No, you don't understand. When I first opened the box, the cake read, Happy birthday, dear Reuben. It changed right before my eyes. Dear Reuben was erased, vanished, and to me was written in its place. I swear I saw it. Didn't you see it? Amanda returned her gaze. You're still just shook up from Stacy's pranks. She was interrupted by Wendy running over to them, holding out an apple with a bite taken out of it. Oh, something's wrong with these. This isn't an apple. I think it's an onion. Another crack of thunder sounded. Amanda reached over and gently took the apple from her. What? Who would coat an onion? Let me try it. She bit into the apple and her face crinkled. Well, the apple's a little tart, but it's definitely not an onion. Wendy grabbed the apple back and examined it. No, it was an onion. And now it's an apple again, she cried. Softly, Amanda said, I think the stress of the party is getting to everyone, and Stacy pulling pranks is not helping things at all. I don't know what she did to the cake, but she needs to stop. Let's regroup. Julie, can you go check if the band is here yet? Wendy and I will make sure everything is set up for the party, and then we can move the food and drinks. Wendy and Amanda returned to the main floor and met Bowers as he was finishing setting up the tables and chairs. Hey, Dave, how's it going? Dave raised his eyes and squinted just a little.
Having a blast. But at least the bathroom's clean. I still need to bring out the decorative present. And then everything will be ready for the party. People are already starting to come in.
As library patrons filed in and took their seats, the librarians added the final touches. With so many expected for the party, a large area on the main floor had been cleared. The main library had tall ceilings, open through to the second floor. There was a mezzanine there on the second floor, rimmed with a protective railing. And perched on the lead below the railing, A ring of sculpted marble busts of various famous figures circled the walls. The shelves and reading couches had been moved, pushed to the outer edge of the floor, and the inner area filled with party tables and chairs. The band, a string quartet, stood off to the side, a single microphone placed in the center. Dave Bowers had placed the decorative birthday present to Reuben directly in front. The empty box measured about 4 feet cubed, wrapped in white wrapping paper and topped with an oversized red bow. Vibrant colored balloons and streamers infused the space with excitement. Wendy, Amanda, Julie, and Stacy admired their handiwork. Stacy turned to the others and said, "It's time. I'll let Gilbert know to start the party, and then I'm going to go look for the director. I thought she was coming to this. I'll be right back." A minute later, Gilbert stepped up and started the show.
Hello.
Gilbert voiced into the microphone.
Who is ready to party? It is time to celebrate Reuben Millen's 200th birthday with cake and caramel apples and punch. But first, let us sing happy birthday to Reuben.
Gilbert took a step back from the mic and signaled the band to begin. At the first strike of the violins, the expected pleasant tones of happy birthday were replaced with screeching and wailing sounds emanating from the instruments. The musicians were horrified. Gilbert's face assumed a befuddled expression. He mouthed the words,
"That is not right."
And then a little girl screamed and pointed above his head. He looked up just as a green, slimy river of goo was cascading over the railing of the second floor. He stood in frozen horror as the curtain of liquid doused him. He was completely coated, and the goo pooled at his feet. Gilbert stood there, drenched and shaking his head. Laughter boomed from the mezzanine above. All eyes darted up to see the figure standing behind the railing on the second floor, dressed in a familiar skeleton costume. Wendy, Amanda, and Julie stood frozen, unsure what to do next. Amanda, finally finding her voice, shouted, "Stacy? Is that you? What are you doing?" All eyes remained glued to the figure, who responded by reaching up with its hand to slowly remove its mask. This revealed a pale, ghastly face, frighteningly disfigured, with glowing yellow eyes and a sinister smile. The face that peered down at them was not Stacy's. It was the face of death. The figure pointed down at the table of punch bowls, and the liquid began to bubble and steam began to rise from the bowls. Then the liquid exploded onto the table on the floor. Everyone looked back up to the second floor. The figure had vanished. All went quiet for a few seconds, and only the voice of Dave Bowers, who had slipped in alongside the group of librarians, could be heard.
"I better get the big mop."
Alarmed, Julie looked around for the figure and, not finding it, shouted, "What do you want?" A disembodied, ghostly voice boomed out.
"Fly!"
And immediately Julie rose into the air. Screaming, she floated over the crowd, the bottom of her ghost costume flowing beneath her. The figure appeared in front of her, and Julie was horrified to find herself face to face with the gruesome ghost before lunging sideways with the ghost chasing her through the air. She circled the crowd 3 times, and just as the ghost appeared to reach her, she plunged down as quickly as she had risen, dropping onto the couch on the edge of the party area. The ghost disappeared. The entire crowd watched the fiasco unfold in stunned, terrified silence. The decorative present began to tremble.
"What do I want?"
The ghostly voice repeated.
"What do I want?"
The box started to shake violently. The intensity increased until a ripping sound sliced through the air. The big red bow atop the box was slashed in half, falling in 2 strips on the ground. The ghostly figure burst through the top of the box with a loud boom and hovered above it. This time the ghost wore a different face, one of someone well known in that library. "The ghost!" Wendy recognized the face and called out, "It's Reuben McMillen!"
"I am he.
The ghost bellowed.
This is my library. Get out."
At these words, the busts on the walls that had circled the airborne ghost flashed to life, their faces warping from their polite smiles to horrified faces filled with fear. Panic seized the crowd, and they began to scream, scattering in every direction.
"Wait! Everyone, please, stop!"
Suddenly the voice of the library director cut through the chaos as she descended the stairs to the first floor. Next to her walked another figure who looked exactly like the ghost. But this figure possessed bright eyes and a friendly smile. Her words calmed the sea of people who stopped to ponder the sudden appearance of the two.
This is Reuben McMillan. Reuben found me bound to a chair in the 4th floor storage where he,
pointing at the terrifying ghost levitating above the now empty gift box,
left me after snatching me from my office.
Reuben looked out across the room at the ghost above the box.
Chauncey, cut out these shenanigans. You were always jealous of me, but as your older brother, I was only trying to look out for you. Stop trying to ruin my name, and stop trying to ruin my library. Now get out of here!
Chauncey hung his head and scowled. Then he uttered a low, long moan as he slowly dissipated into the air. Reuben frowned as he assessed the scene. Then he began to undo all the rogue tricks Chauncey had played while impersonating him. The punch and green slime disappeared from the floor, and the chairs, tables, and gift box returned to their original state.
I watch over this library and take great pride in it,
He explained.
I was taking a brief nap on the 4th floor so as to be fresh for the party. I awoke to discover the director and knew that my sneaky brother was up to his old tricks.
Reuben then poofed out of sight and reappeared directly in front of the cake.
Happy birthday? To me?
He read aloud.
Thank you so much. I do love cake. And, if this is for me,
A plated piece of cake materialized in Reuben's hand, and he signaled the band.
let's start the party.
And then he and his cake dissipated into the air. And the band began to play a familiar song.